Okay, so we're ready to move on, and we're going to move on to step 13. You can see we're going to take the top of the secondary hull that has the dorsal pylon, and we're going to solder the wire that's going to lead to the saucer section, and then we're going to glue it on. But what we're going to do also is we're going to trim all of the little fiber optic cables coming out, and we're going to seal it after we glue it on. So let me show you. Actually, let me read you the instructions. You can see what we got to do. Use the micro driller to carefully drill 16 holes in a lower engineering hull. Note, drill through the molded windows of your choice. Bundle and tape 16 of the 8-inch fiber optic cable strands together, and we're going to do the same thing for the bottom of the cable. And we're going to put the bundles in there. Solder the remaining connections as shown. Drill a hole in front of the retainer plug, just large enough for the fiber optic bundles to fit, approximately 1/8 diameter. If the hole is not large enough, enlarge the hole. Tape the fiber optic bundles together, trim the ends evenly, and insert it into the retainer plug approximately 1/4 inch, and plug the retainer into the reflector cup. You can see how once they're all even, the light will distribute to every single one. Plug in the power cord and power jack and seat and test the connections. Cement the upper and lower engineering hulls together. So then we're going to do the step 14, and you can see we're going to do the same thing for the bottom of the primary hull. But let's get right to this part. You guys remember we had already done the bottom of the secondary hull, and we had coated it, sealed it, and we just got done doing the top part. You can see all the cables that need to be trimmed. So what we're going to do is we're going to bundle it, and all the cables, once they're bundled, they're going to go right in there. So let's get right to it. Alright, so we got the wires stripped. We got them split, separated, and stripped, and they're ready to be soldered into the bottom of the secondary hull. We're going to solder the leads into this so power will run to the primary hull, and then we'll be able to cement the top of the secondary hull on, and then we can seal it. I'm going to use the solder, the solder flux. And what the flux does is it helps the solder stick. Okay, so you can see we got the wires soldered, and we're all set now to put the top in. We're going to bundle the cables too, and the cables have to go into that special little cup. So let's get the cup. And here's the cup. This is going to go in to the fiber optic cup. And what we have to do is we have to drill a hole. Probably I'm going to do 1/8 inch so we can push the cable in so it'll hold it into place. What I'm going to do is, now we're going to push them all through the hole. Yeah, I'm probably going to have to go bigger. It's a little better. You kind of even out all the cables, and then we're going to put them in there. You get it in, it'll kind of look like that with all the bundled cables. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this and secure it. Alright, we're going to let that dry, and then what we're going to do is we're going to push it into the cup with the light. So we're going to trim the cables so they're all even. Now we're ready to put it into the small cup. And it'll click into place. I don't know if you can see that. I'm gonna put the hull down over. Gotta make sure all the fiber optic cables stay inside. But before we glue it, what we're gonna make sure is that the connections are still good, and that everything is gonna light, and that the fiber optic cables are where they're supposed to be. So, you guys remember earlier videos, we've got the power supply. And we hot glued it into the bottom of the base. So I don't know if you guys can see. Yeah, there's a lot of light leak. We're gonna have to fill the cracks again, just because it's not going together perfectly. You can see the back of the dorsal hull, the light's there. So the cables are in the cup, and that held. So what we're gonna have to do now is, I don't know if you can see the little cables running out. So I gotta figure out a way to get all the cables in, and then we're going to super glue the top of the secondary hull. All right, so what I had to do was I'm going to do it by the side. So I put a clamp on the front, on the back, and in the middle. So I'm going to have to wait until this glue is dry, and then I'm going to do the other side and clamp it. And then we're going to have to put more putty around the edges and close off all the light leaks. So now all we can do is wait for this to dry. So we'll leave it just like that. Okay, so the glue has had some time to set. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the clips off, and then we're going to glue and clamp the other side. Okay, so we took off the clamps. You can see the clamps did a little bit of damage, but we'll touch that up when we paint it. After we put on the a little bit of the putty. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the port side. I'm going to glue it, and then we'll clamp it. And I'll show you guys what it looks like when it's clamped. Okay, so we glued it, and we clamped it. And we'll wait for that to dry. I'm going to let it dry really well. And then when that's all set, then we'll be able to move on. And we're going to cut the fiber optic cables. And then we're going to put some of the plastic putty around. We're going to get all the cracks sealed up, make sure there's no light leak. We're going to trim the fiber optic cable hairs. We're going to touch it up with the paint, and then we're going to seal it. So that's a lot to do. But right now, that's what's left to finish. Right now we're in step 13. So we did the soldering. So we're going to be ready to move on. And you can see the upper saucer, the lower half of the saucer section, a primary hull. You can see we're going to put the reflector cup in. And that's step 14. So let's go ahead. And what I want to do is I want to get the lower saucer section for you. You can see we finished this. And what we're going to do is you can see where we're going to put the cups. So what I want to do is I'm going to glue this, and we're going to use the Plastruck bonding. Or actually, you know what, for this we might use a super glue. You can see this is the part that's going to go inside. So let's take that off the parts tree. And let's see. Here's the, this is going to hold it in place. All right. So let's put this secondary hull to the side for now to let it dry completely. And we're going to glue this section. And according to the instructions, the opening is going to be facing towards the port side. So it's going to go just like that. And then the bracket, you can see the pins. It's going to go right in. Just like that. So we'll put a little bit of super glue. It's actually a little easier to do this. Put the bracket on first and then put the cup in. Actually, before we put the cup in, you can see I glued the bracket. This is going to hold it in place. So we're going to do that first. You can see there's a line, so when you push the cup through, that'll automatically stop. But what we got to do is we got to get the bulb. We got to get the bulb through this, just like we did last time with the secondary hull. And as you can see, it's going to be light source A. Insert the remaining light source A into the reflector cup as shown. Secure the reflector cup in place with the reflector cup retainer. Untie the knot at the end of the paired wire and carefully thread the wire through the hole drilled to step 8. Well, we didn't put a wire because I didn't think it needed it because there was enough tension there to keep it in place. Cement the lower main hull to the battle head. Cut as much of the paired wire as necessary to reach the source light and solder the connections. Note, there should be approximately 1 foot of paired wire remaining. Plug the power cord into the power jack and test the connection. So you can see when we pull the wire through, we'll do that later. That'll be all set. And then we're going to solder the light. So let's get the light bulb through. So what we're going to need to do is go ahead and find light source A. So you guys can see light source A is the smaller bulb of the three. And that's what's going to go into the cup. Let me show you guys. Again, this is the smallest of the three. And this is going to go into the bottom. You guys remember, it's tricky to get it in, but we'll do it. Okay, so that was a little tricky, but again, we got the bulb in. What I did was I put just a drop of super glue into the cup, and that'll hold the light in place. And that way there we'll be able to solder the leads to the wire. And then we can in turn glue this into the bracket and it'll be all set. Yeah. Just a bit. Just so the solder will stick to it. And now we can glue the cup into place just like that with a drop of the super glue, and you can see the cup will be held in place and it's all set. It's all set to run the fiber optic cable and put it into the insertion cup, and it'll be all set to go. So that's done. So what we got to do now is we're going to wait for the secondary hull to finish drying the glue, and once the glue sets, then we can glue this section. We'll glue the bottom of the primary hull to the secondary hull. Okay, so I had time to set, so we're going to take off the clamps. Take off the one in the back. You can see so what we have to do now is we got to fill in and we're going to be ready to put the primary hull, the bottom half, on. So that had a chance to dry as well. Okay, so you can see we went around and we sealed up all the cracks with the perfect plastic putty. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go wash it off, and then I'm going to show you guys how good it looks. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see how it got filled in pretty nicely. All the cracks are filled in with the putty. It'll be nice and smooth. So I think what I'm going to do now is, while waiting for the putty to dry, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to snip all of the fiber optic cables that are coming out. Yeah, maybe I'll be able to see more once it's lit up. But you can see I snipped off the cables coming out. Oh, there could be still a couple here. And that looks good. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, so now what we're going to do now is we're going to touch up the paint. I use a nice fluffy brush. And I'm going to start from the port side, and I'm going to touch in all of the areas that need to be touched up. Okay, so you can see it's all touched up. And we're going to let that dry. Okay, I think while we're waiting for the paint to dry, I'm going to glue the secondary hull on to the bottom of the primary hull. You can see we got this all nice and dry. So you can see this is going to go right through the hole that we drilled specifically for that. And you guys can see where it's going to mount or be glued in place. Now I think what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to use a more crazy glue, just because I want it to be able to be solid. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it I'm going to prep it by doing the areas underneath the primary hull. There, that seems to be enough. So you can see she's starting to look more like the Enterprise. Again, I just want to make sure it's even. There, you guys can see it's even. The bottom of the saucer section is even with the battle bridge, or the dorsal. Now, we really need to let this dry. Let the paint dry. Oh, let me. I'm sorry, I'm hitting the thing with the camera. But we're going to let the paint dry, and we're going to let the bottom of the hulls that join together, we're going to let that dry. And then I'll show you guys when we're ready to seal the secondary hull. So what if I lean it right up against the box? And let that dry. Okay, so I had some parts over, some parts from a spare kit that I had, the fiber optic Enterprise Incident from AMT. And as you can see, the lights that they used are kind of like the same lights we're going to use in this kit. Now I noticed that the impulse engines, well, first of all, they're the wrong color. Unless they're the right color, and guys, correct me if I'm wrong, it has the impulse engines as blue. And I always thought that they were red. But it says main impulse engine, transparent blue. They do not light up. And you guys know that I can't help myself. I love lighting things up. So I want the impulse engines to light up on the primary hull. The back of the secondary hull is already done. I should have thought about it sooner. I could have put a light bulb in back of there, but it's too late to do that because it's already glued. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the impulse engines off of the primary hull light up. And I'm going to use 2 of these, because they're the same kind of 6-volt lights that do not require a resistor because of the low voltage. And I'll be able to wire them up, and I'll use some of my wire, and we'll be able to light up the impulse engines. So I'm going to solder these into place while I do the soldering for the rest of the primary hull. Right, so you guys can see how it's looking so far. And this is going to come through, and this is going to go to right about there. So we'll cut it right about there. And you see there should be around approximately a foot left of the other wire. So there's just about that much left, and that'll be used for the nacelles. Okay, so we got the wires separated, and then we stripped them. So what I got to do is I'm going to stand this back up to dry. I'm going to lean it right up against the box, and I got to find some wire. That should be good. All right, so we strip these down. I want to get these about the same length. So I'm going to cut them right there. And now we're going to strip the ends. These are stripped on both ends. And the longer ends I'm going to put together, and they're going to go to the power supply. Okay, so both ends of both sets of wires are stripped. And what we can do now is I'm going to solder the bulbs to the ends of the wires. So we got to move her. Got to put her somewhere where. All right, we're going to use the solder flux again. And you guys can see the leads are soldered for both of the lights, and it's all set to secure into the bottom of the secondary, the primary. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our port and starboard lights. You can see how they're going to go, and we're going to take one of them, one of the leads. Alright guys, I don't know if you can see that. I got both of the lights, but that's all for the soldering, or it should be all for the soldering. So why don't we see if this was worth it, and we're going to test the lights. Hopefully they work. You guys can see we are now going to have lights for port and starboard impulse engines, and you can see we've got the light on the inside for the fiber optic cables. Plus you guys can see, I don't know if you can see that or not, but all the lights that are coming through the windows. When it's finished, I'm going to have it in a really dark room so you guys will be able to see everything a little bit better. But I just wanted to show you guys and to test them to make sure it worked. We got the two impulse engines. And again, this wasn't with the kit. I had these extra from another fiber optic kit from AMT. And the cup is looking good. So, oh, and you can see the deflector dish. And you can see the light leak is all taken care of. we can spray the sealer on it, and that'll take care of the secondary hull. Well, the main part of the secondary hull and the dorsal hull, and then we'll be able to move on to the next step. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use tape for now, and we're going to keep these in position just so they don't flop around and they like to get hooked on things. So if we got a little bit of tape holding them in place, that'll be a good thing. So this one, let's go just like that. That can go just like that. That way there, we want to make sure that everything stays in place, because, you know, when you move the things around and they're flopping or they're loose, they tend to get caught on things, and when they get caught and you move it, they get ripped out. So we don't want that to happen. So you can see the impulse engine lights are all set to go. And what we're going to do now is we're going to finish off the secondary hull, and we're going to put sealer on it, and we're going to seal it. Okay, so the sealant is ready to go. Let's give it a bit of a test. Okay. All right, let's give that a chance to dry. Once it'll dry thoroughly, you can see how it's starting to look good. We got it all sealed, painted. The fiber optic cables are cut, and they're all ready to go. We tested it. It's working fine. We got the paint sealed underneath the primary hull and the dorsal hull. We got the secondary hull all puttied off. We got all the light leaks and cracks and holes filled. Okay, so I had a little bit of time to dry. I'll show you guys. I'm going to let it dry overnight. That way there it's really good and dry. But I just wanted to show you guys what it looked like. You can see the bottom. Looking pretty nice. Bottom of the saucer section, bottom of the dorsal hull, and the bottom of the secondary hull. You can see the all the coating is on. It's sealed, so the decals are sealed. And we got the bottom of the primary hull set, the reflective paint, the cup that's going to hold the fiber optic cables. We've got the port and the starboard impulse engines that are going to light up. We did the putty. We closed all the gaps. You can see around the deflector dish, there's no holes, there's no gaps. We painted it. We trimmed off all of the fiber optic cables. So, don't look now, but that's the conclusion of steps 13 and 14. You can see step 13, step 14 we did. We're ready to move on to step 15. And step 15, let me show you guys what that is going to be. You get to do the top. Actually, step 15, we're going to do the windows. We're going to light all the windows on the bottom. We're going to use 15 inches of the fiber optic cable. I'm sorry, not 15 inches. It's going to be, let's see, it's going to be the 14-inch one. And we're going to drill the holes, and we're going to run the fiber optic cable through the bottom. And step 16 is really going to be fun. We're going to light the island and hopefully the bridge. But that, my friends, was the conclusion of steps 13 and 14. As usual, I thank you so much for watching. And when it's totally dry, I'll show you guys how it looks when we move on to step 15. Thanks for watching, my friends.